Trust Doctor, another TvT. If he's favored, does that mean that he's master? I think actually his timing attack just before my stim finished played a big role in him having more Marines in the early game. Because a big old hunk of my Marines were trying to get into position super slowly because they didn't have stim, and that sucked. Oh, Artosis, you are so paused. I agree with myself. I am telling you the truth.
You know, later in the game, if they're still going Sky Terror and it gets a little weird and complicated the way you have to do it, it'll oftentimes involve High Templars and whatnot, but Blink Stalkers and, of course, any Phoenixes will completely own them. Putting up some cannons isn't bad. Basically, two-port Banshee builds, they invest so much in that you are actually going to kind of kill it if you stop it at all. So you can actually overcommit to stopping it, such as the Phoenixes, such as just go Stalkers, such as make a bunch of cannons. But cannons, of course, are going to be the worst of those. And remember to have a lot of observers, not just two. You're going to want a few of them, because someone who's investing that much is likely to make a couple Vikings to try to pick those off as well. Alright, how should a player go about improving his mechanics? And what area, examples, minimap usage, awareness, and mouse accuracy do you feel most important to improve to become a top player? And then there's some other pieces to it, but it kind of asks the same thing over and over. Alright, so to improve your mechanics, you really want to work on the macro first. And I know that everyone kind of says this, but macro is really what's important. You need to have a lot of units to do things with, or you'll never understand why you lose. It's a lot easier to spend all your money and then get slaughtered in a battle because you have no micro, and figure out where things went wrong. Because if otherwise, there's like so many variables involved. Like, let's say that you have kind of bad macro, but pretty decent micro, and you're microing your tail off in a battle, and you lose, and you look at the game, you're like, really, why did I lose this? Well, if you had a lot more units, it'd be so much easier to tell, because units and mass actually beats out micro, which is why we see more macro-based like champions and stuff like that rather than micro-based. Where, I mean, both of them can end up working, but macro is like the long-term solution to everything. So that's going to be what you really want to work on. The other stuff comes next. You know, here it mentioned minimap usage and awareness. That's actually something that you'll learn like pretty darn late. Like, you can be high masters and bad at the minimap, and eventually what you'll do is just kind of focus on staring at the minimap as much as you can. Like, your eyes should always be darting down like that during the game. Like, you might see, like, let's say that you watch one of these terms like an MLG, an IEM, you know, anything where it shows the player on the camera at points. You'll actually see their eyes like dart every now and then, and you'll see stuff like this. Ready? This one? That one, they were looking at their supply. This one? That's the minimap. And you'll see all sorts of stuff like that. Oh, someone's attacking the top left of my screen. Okay, there you go. But that's why their eyes are moving around, and you'll see them move like, they'll stare straight a lot of the time because they're focusing on things happening on the screen, and then they'll dart to the corners that they need to see things on. Anyways, next question. What are the situations that would warrant a flank from multiple sides with Zerg? Is a flank ever a bad idea? You know what? If it's a good flank, it's always a good idea with Zerg. Yeah, but it matters your unit composition. Like, You don't want to flank when Broodlords are involved. That needs to be a death ball. If you have Hydras in your army, like a Roach Hydra army in ZVZ, you normally want to face with good concave, but not really a flank, because you really need the bulk from your Hydras or you'll die. But yeah, you basically always want to flank other than just a couple very specific scenarios with Zerg, because that's kind of what they do. The Zerg can screw up AI, the units don't require a ton of micro, it's just kind of like slamming your opponent from all over the place, and he should become overwhelmed and not be able to micro against you. Alright, while training, watching replays is very vital in learning from what you do well and bad. What is a proper way to gauge a replay on how well you did and figure where you could improve, since winning doesn't always mean you played well, the other guy could have played bad. Oh, I like that. That's actually a really good question. So, alright, to gauge from a replay, this is the way that personally I do it. I watch the replay up to a point where I see like something that could have been a game-changing mistake being made. Alright, so what are some of these things? Let's say you know, you have like, let me go like way out there and then narrow it down. Let's say that you have a misrallied your first Colossus, right? And he rallies out into the center because you had him on the Observer rally, and Terran happens to be out there, he just picks him off, you kill basically nothing with him, you're like, ah, crap. And then the game goes on for a while more, but you end up losing. The Terran just takes too many edges. That, like, for instance, I would look at that in a replay and say, oh, this replay isn't worth anything. One Colossus is too powerful in my army early on. It affects every other thing for the rest of the game. So that's like a big one. I mean, that actually will happen occasionally, but other than that, like, I would take a look at broad stroke things. Am I keeping up my probe SCV drone production? Am I doing like a cheesy thing? Did it get scouted? Things like that are much more straightforward, where it's like, well, you know what, you tried to hide Cloak Banshee, he scouted it, he made a turret and a Viking and a Raven. What are you going to do, right? There's not a whole lot to study from there. You know, you kind of took a risk and didn't end up paying off. But in overall macro games, yeah, look at general trends. I always look at the first battle that's lost. Look at any situations in which you lose a lot of miners, stuff like that. Those are all really good places to look. Yeah, did you scout correctly? Stuff like that. Did you miss something silly? Did you actually see something silly, but you didn't see it? Like a dropship flew by a pylon, and you missed it. It's like, well, I got to work on my mini-map awareness then. So that's the way I like to look at it. Alright, so how do you stop a 1-1-1 playing as Protoss when the Terran has no Banshees but has a lot of Marines with Stim? Okay, so this is like, I guess if it's a 1-1-1 in this case, it's going to be Stim, Marine, with some Siege Shanks and some Medevacs. Well, that's a pretty all-anything, and there's a couple ways. You can rush up to Colossus and try it that way. Otherwise, you can kind of overwhelm and use good force fields. You know, they aren't going to have a lot of medevacs, so just anytime you could force field off like 1 or 2 hexes and get away, when they stim, they're going to lose a lot of energy and a lot of health, and the next stim is going to be as powerful, and the third one's going to be almost non-existent as far as the power goes, because they're going to be losing a lot of hit points, not healing quickly. But you're going to want to basically force field things off, like engage in small chokes or on ramps when they're coming across the map with it. And a big part of this is being careful with your Zealots. A lot of times people will just do the force field wall, and all the Zealots will run forward, and all their shooting units will be shooting at that little group of Marines. But the thing is, as the Zealots come closer, the Marines in the back plow them down. So you have to be really careful about that. You'll watch like top level players, if they play against something like this, they'll pull those Zealots down a little bit more. You might need to use them a little bit. It matters how many you end up force fielding in. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of experience to know exactly how to do it. But you've got to be careful about that, basically. If you start hemorrhaging units out, you're going to die. If you use too many force fields, you're going to die. It takes some precision, and it takes some skill to hold off one of those. But once you start to get the hang of it and start to figure out, oh, okay, you know, if I went, like, let's say 1 gate expand and I see this coming, you know, maybe you have like 2 Immortals out of your Robo, and then you're just going 4 gate units or something, just picking things off left and right, because it's all about picking things off and whittling down the Terran army. That type of army needs a certain mass to be able to kill you off with, and that certain mass gets really good against all the Protoss units, which is why with the force fields you cut that mass down several times and fight much smaller masses, and then by the end you have such a mass that you roll it over. So it's kind of like almost tempo based, not the right word, but anyways. Why is StarCraft 2 so fun? Yeah, it's just the most fun game ever, man. It's the best. With Ravens now being meta in late game TvZ, should we expect to see more mid-game Ravens in low numbers? You know what? Mid-game in low numbers. Look, I think that having one Raven out early on isn't terrible if you have the time in your build for it, just to help out with some creep and stuff like that. But no, I don't think we're going to see it as much in the mid-game, because in the mid-game you're really trying to get out a lot of medevacs to actually, you know, have the healing power you need, get the drops done that you need to do, and Ravens, at that point, you're not going to invest in the Corvid reactor for the extra energy, you're not going to get Seeker missiles, because you really want those later on. They're not as useful early on. I mean, yeah, if you happen to get one off on a mute or something, that's great, but it's really when you get that super turtle style against the slow-moving units of your opponent, like Broodlords, like Corruptors, then it becomes really powerful. And by then you normally have a gas bank as well, because Terran's so mineral heavy early on. So I would say no, probably won't see that many in the earlier game. Or in the mid-game. Alright, so. Let's see. Skip that one.
Yeah, this guy was one base all inning.
How much is standard play impacted by map size and number of spawn locations?
So
to what extent are build orders and tech choices affected? Ooh, that's a really good question as well. Okay, so yeah, standard play, of course, is going to be affected a lot by map size. And again, I have to go to the extremes to really explain this. Look at a map. I'll use one a lot of people have probably seen, Atlantis Spaceship. And then look at a map, one of our earliest maps, Steps of War. Now, Steps of War was the smallest pro map ever used. It was released with the game, like in the beta, and it was so small. How do I even explain how small this was? This was the smallest. It's stupid how small this map was. It literally takes, to get from your natural to your opponent's natural to the Stalker, like seconds, like, what? 15 seconds or something. It's just, it's no time at all. If Terran moves out, he's there before you can get a warping round done. Like, if someone moves out against Zerg, you can't even hatch Zerglings in time. Now, on that map, let's say back then you had a professional TvZ going on. Zerg all game has to continually make a lot of lings, or roaches, or whatever units they're going, because Terran can move out at any time and be there before a larva inject can finish and more units can be made. So you had to have enough that whatever you made in the tiny amount of time that they were coming over, added to your army, would be enough to kill off their army, which destroyed Zerg economies. And basically the map turned out to be imbalanced. Whatever. That's the way that standard play would have to be on maps of that size. Whereas you look at Atlantis Spaceship, that map is so giant that Zerg makes... You can see games sometimes where, let's say TvZ once again, you see games where there's like 6 queens and 1 ling on the map, until Terran starts to move out, and then there's a big massive production. So those are the two standards, let's say, on those maps. Now, either one may not be balanced, but as you get closer to the center, you'll find the better balance of what standard play will be on a map. So basically, every map has a way to be played.
I just kind of find it interesting to
other
listen
styles
to
and things on maps. There's some
generic
great
random
choices in
strategy
doing things like
stuff that either you already know or it doesn't matter. Or both.
Yeah, that's basically maps
like,
completely change the way that you should play.
If you were really good at tennis, and you
but that doesn't necessarily mean that should be the way at lower levels, because a lot of times you're still practicing basics and mechanics and stuff.
Throw the ball
and
up in there,
then repetition is oftentimes better. So don't take it the wrong way. Don't be like, well, you know what? You know, I'm in silver, I'm trying to get up, I want to hit, you know, platinum by the end of the season. It's like, well, cool, but don't necessarily try to play each map different. That's really, it gets very difficult to do, and you really want to be...
Who am I playing against? TvP Sunshine. I think I played the same guy earlier. Yeah, I did.
Be much closer to the pro level to be able to do that. Alright. Since we are watching a lot of PvP in the WCS at the moment, I feel it's better to play a safer creative prime style in order to just not die. Or should we be focused on...
Yeah, Nick says... I don't remember. Whatever tournament he's watching is... There's no Terrans, so he had to shut it off. It was very sad. I've been playing all day, so I haven't been keeping up.
Totally cool. Like, he tries to control the game a lot of time. Alright, so, basically,
Did I make a 13 racks? That's really funny.
Well, there's the three different types.
This guy's gonna make gas because he's my best friend.
And the answer is you actually have to get
The next guy's gonna make a racks, but he's got to get like 1 round of minerals first, I think.
Some of the bigger ones like Tal'Darim PvP, but on a standard like force fielding map, you know, if you play something super aggressive and all inning,
he totally got me 8 minerals. That's because he's a boss. It's like,
now,
I wouldn't want you not to have 8 minerals, Halby.
Edges against the safe build. Not necessarily kill it straight up, but
Having trouble paying attention to what he's saying, so I have to pause. I'll listen later. The TvP build is so freaking exacting. TvT is so nice and relaxed and everything's nice and slow paced and like you can do it in your sleep. TvP, while I've done it a million times, I still mess it up like most of the time.
Upgrade complete.
So you can make 2 workers in the time it takes to make a depot. So when this is almost finished, you have to make this depot. You don't want to make it too early. I think I'll take a dude off gas for now too.
Add on.
Really early robo, so he's going to be dead soon, I think.
We could use some help here.
And I'm going to not get combat shields. That's why I took 1 dude off gas.
Research complete.
Instead, I'm going to get factory and a reactor core after a little bit. So when that immortal comes out, I'm in big trouble, but it should be a while, and he went 1 gate immortal. So he's only going to have units off of 1 gateway. Oh crap, itchy eyeball. Oh, he hit a stinky pylon. I can't kill that immortal, I don't think. Where is he? There he is. Yeah, that was unfortunate. The 1 gate robo isn't really... You have to start with a sentry so that you can force field me out in case I pressure you. You can't just make a zealot and a stalker and then be like, oh, what do I do now? Oh, my eyeball's so itchy. Itchy eyeball, itchy eyeball, itchy eyeball. Every face is always. Thanks for mute. No, Dairy King will pass over the mini Terran buff patch. Aw. Yeah, I wasn't talking when he was talking. That's why you couldn't hear me. Come on, you guys. Watching Artosis is like listening to music.
But you're definitely going to have edges. You're definitely going to get ahead. Safe build, of course. Going to be harder against greedy build, as we mentioned before, but going to do very well against the all-any build. Like, you're just going to crush it and get a free win. Now, the way they match up against each other, I prefer
TvT.
the safer play.
Third master in a row, man. I'm getting back to the Masters League opponents.
It's smart to do.
Scary stuff.
And to be honest, everyone should mix in a lot of each. You know, maybe even do them in thirds if you want. But the safe build won't always just die to the greedy build, but will get behind. So that's a tough place to be in. But it will most of the times just crush the aggressive build. So like for ladder, for instance, if I'm playing on, let's say, the North American ladder, I'll probably play the safe play a lot of the time. But in fact, I play safe play most of the time anyways, just because you never are dead straight up, which I find really annoying to practice when I don't get enough time for my games. But yeah, I mean, it's important to mix in all the styles.
Super
really
early
is.
depot.
But for practice sake, I would say practice a little bit more of the safe play than the others, because it's going to allow you to get into the longer game situations and understand those situations more. But definitely.
Oh, too much StarCraft. My brain is melting. I might have to stop. I think maybe I didn't eat anything since like 2 o'clock. Maybe breakfast. I had breakfast. Is it past? Yeah, it's like 8 p.m. now. I should probably eat. That's why I'm melting. I see. I should open Banshee just because I want this game to be quick. I suck at using Banshees. But I'm not gonna. Terran workers are like the worst harass units in the universe. So in most TvTs, people just go home because there's no regen of shields or health. So like anytime you get hit, it's permanent damage, and eventually, if you get low, you can't really scout anymore, and it's just silly.
Upgrade complete.
Ah, I'm falling off my chair. So, most common in TvT is for someone to come into the backside of your base. And so if you keep your whole army in your main, then you can do really well against that sort of thing. But that means you need to be you need like a big long warning if they're coming to the front of your base. So holding that watchtower is crucial, because then you can keep your army inside your base while not being vulnerable to a tank flush or something, right? Because if you're blind, you need to keep things at the front so that you don't just die to an attack. It's all very confusing. Not confusing, but annoying, that's what I meant. Because holding a watchtower on this map that's 300 miles away is like so annoying.
Upgrade complete.
So if he's going for like banshees or something, then I'll have my eBay done, but I'll have to put up turrets, and the Marines are there to buy time for me to put up turrets. I'm trying not to keep very many dudes down on the low ground, because usually the first play is geared at trying to spread you apart. So here is, was that a medevac or no? It's a banshee. So with all those turrets, I break even with his Banshee if he got more than one, but if he's doing a Banshee tank push, I'm probably in some trouble. And instead of getting the reactor cores right now, I like to throw down more racks, because if he is doing a tank push, right about now is when it's going to come. I'm trying to keep an eye out. Like, I don't think he can get to me from either direction.
Upgrade complete. Add-on complete. Research complete.
That was good. That was good.
Add-on complete. Add-on complete. Add-on.
Still need shields before I can be aggressive. Still need to finish 2-2. Oh no!
Upgrade
He
complete.
doesn't have his third, I don't have my third. That puts me ahead because I won the fight. If he had his third already, I'd still probably be ahead, but there'd be a timer. Like, if I don't kill him within a certain number of seconds from then, I'm screwed. So when this is done, I can try to end the game with these researchers all lining up.
Upgrade complete. Mineral field depleted.
And I need 2 more factories. So that pulls him out of position while I mop up all these. Now he wants to go around, but he can't. Probably 2 drop ships.
Upgrade complete.
I don't know what those SCVs are thinking. And that's that. Blah, blah, blah. I think he one based, so it's not surprising that after it failed, he didn't do much. It's probably, I don't know. I feel like his Banshee harass was really terrible. He was he was top 25 masters, man. I start playing real players again. It's no fun. It's too stressful. Too stressful to play against real people. I just want to see if he expanded, like what was going wrong with that, because that looked like a looked like a Banshee tank push, but then the tank push was so small, 2 tanks and like 16 Marines at like 10 minutes in. It was ridiculous. So maybe it was like proxy starport or something. Nope, it's just a 1-1-1 tech lab. Starport being built in the tech lab. The fastest Banshee you can get without proxying it and without gas bursting, right? Actually, this must have been gas first, right? Because this is a 6-minute Banshee, like crazy early Banshee. But since it wasn't proxied, it doesn't matter how early the Banshee is. It didn't do much. It got 3 kills of just Marines, so that was... He invested a lot to get the really early Banshee. And then, and then he does expand, but he's already... Ooh. 8 workers behind, like massively behind. And then to do a tank push when you know you're behind, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I guess he didn't know I had the tower, so he didn't realize he was walking in where I could see him. And I just dropped him and pushed. If I hadn't had stim, he might have been able to get siege mode within range of the bottom of this ramp and held me off. But I don't know how that would have helped him, you know? That's just kind of taking an aggressive posture that you can't really maintain because you don't have any production or army or anything. He did end up building almost $1,000 more than me, but Marines beat the crap out of tanks and Banshees apparently. Anyway, it's just bad luck for him. It's like Artosis is pooping. I want my Raven buff too.